And happy Friday. There we go. Thanks, Kim. Happy Friday. I am so excited to introduce you to Rachel Rodriguez. Those of you that don't know, Rachel is part of a team, but we'll get to know Rachel together. Rachel joined our office about, what do we say, about 4 months ago, roughly. Um, and uh, and she is an amazing, amazing person. She's a great mom and wife as well. So, no further ado, I want to pass the baton over to Rachel. And Rachel, can you give us a little bit of snippet of who you were, and just who you are?
Sure. I came from like a corporate background, so a little bit different. I never thought that I would do real estate. I grew up with my mom doing real estate, and some of the things that she, went through, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. So that was one of the reasons why I never thought that I would do that. You know, it's different when you don't know when you're getting a check. That was one of the things that I think kind of held me back. And I uh, I went to college. I went to school in Idaho, so there wasn't a lot to do there.
Yeah, I
So
think I knew that.
yeah, I went to school in Idaho and I went to a church school, so there was not a lot of excitement there. But in any case, I grew up in the Central Valley, so really small little like farm town, and I started to go to school there, and then I went on an internship in Disney World. Did that for six
Whoa.
months. Yep. So I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. So I went somewhere even smaller. I went to Idaho. But anyway, I did leave. And while I was gone, my mom moved down here. And so it was really interesting. Like the first time that I drove down here, it was just a different experience for me. I had never lived in like an apartment or anything like that. We always had single family homes, and up there it's just that and farms, and there wasn't, condos and stuff like that. So really different experience here. And when I got here, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started working at Target. San Pedro had just got that Target. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get a job there and just figure it out. And I did really well there, and that was not at all what I anticipated. Um, so I just kept getting promoted to different levels and, made more and more money there. So in the 8 years that I was with Target, I was at five different stores. So it was a lot of movement. I saw a lot of different areas of the South Bay, but then I met my husband, and he lived in North Orange County. So I transferred over that way eventually, and that's kind of where I left them. But lots of different experiences with them. And then I was thinking I needed to make a change, and I put my resume up, and the next day Public Storage called me. So I took a district manager position with them. And when I was only with them for about 3 years. I had 16 different locations that I was over. So it
Whoa.
was kind of a lot, kind of a big chunk, and that was during COVID. So um, it was an interesting job. I definitely learned a lot. And I think that they have some really great sales tactics, which really translated well over to what I'm doing here.
Mhm.
The way that they make calls and get appointments and all of that stuff. It's kind of crazy. People wouldn't think that. People would just think, okay, I reserved a storage, they show up. It's really not how it works. It's like a lead. So I ran a big team for them. And then some of you that know me, I have some health challenges. So, in at the end of 2021, I had cardiac arrest. So, I think that at that point, I really needed to make like a lifestyle change.
Right.
And so that was one of the big reasons that I decided to try real estate. I was on disability for like 6 months after that, and I was like, well, I can't just sit here. So, I got my license while I was on disability.
Wow. No, that's amazing. And yeah, those of you that didn't know, Rachel definitely had a huge health scare,
Yeah.
which was to say the least. But man, you came out swinging. So, yeah, so cardiac arrest, disability, and decided to get your license. Now, you did state that you didn't want to go into real estate because you saw the hustle and bustle. What was that trigger point to say, you know what, I'm going to try this out? Because, you were at a high stress level,
Mhm,
environment. So
mhm.
real estate is no different, babe.
It's not different, but I think there are some differences in, kind of like what you put in, you get out,
Right,
right? And so I think that's like the biggest thing is that I wanted to be more in control of like my outcomes. And I mean, there's some things, of course, there's things out there which are going to happen that, are not in your control, but it's different than running a team of people where they can do anything and you're responsible for it, right?
right,
Versus like you can control the things that you're doing.
correct.
So I think that that's a really different scope of what you're looking at. It is more controllable ultimately, right? And I think the other thing is like even though I'm on a team, you still have like some individual results that really stem exactly like just from your work. It's not from the work of other people or anything like that. It's very, very different than management. It has a lot of things that I can take, I could take those skills that I learn and bring it over here.
Right.
But it's just a very different way of looking at things. And yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it feels a little scary, especially like I've been licensed for a year and a half. So in the last year and a half, we all know what the market has looked like, and it did not look like what it looked like a couple of years ago.
Right.
So so I mean, in terms of like having that security, it's a little bit different. But I think it just continues to motivate me. And I think that when you're able to I work a lot with buyers right now. And when you're able to get a buyer something that they really wanted, things are still competitive. Even though, the rates are as high as they are, people think that it's not, it's very competitive still. And to be able to help a buyer get the home that they're looking for, to be able to help negotiate repairs that are, needed. I think that that's really important, especially for these first time buyers. They're struggling just to get in there as it is. And, it's important that they have somebody to fight for them and to build those relationships. It looks very different than, just a regular customer service job where you see people come in and out.
Correct. No, absolutely. So you mentioned that, you joined the team. Why join the team? One, number two, did you not want to be a solo agent when you jumped into real estate?
So I don't think I would have ever done it if I was going to be solo because there's so many things that you have to I think implement, right? And I wasn't looking to like try to reinvent the wheel for myself, right? I was really looking for support and being on a team. There's already some systems established. They've already kind of gone through some of the things that they know work and don't. And they can give you that support to start out. There's like some training. And I mean, I think, Keller Williams overall, especially where we are, I think there's a lot of great classes out there in training, but it's different when you're in the middle of a transaction and, you need an answer right now.
Correct.
And so I think that's another thing is you really lean on your team members. Yeah, I joined my mom's team, but again, I wouldn't have done real estate if it was just like, okay, you're on your own.
Right.
So I think that support that it provides and um, just just some of the things that are already in place for you, you don't have to start from nothing. And I think that that's a really good way to go and start off. And you just continue to learn every day because you're hearing about the team's transactions too, not just yours. So you get more
Correct.
experience that way.
Yep. No, absolutely. Bouncing off the ideas, masterminding, brainstorming around
Hmm.
each other's transaction. I can absolutely see that. Yeah. So
Hmm.
let's transition a little bit. What do you do currently for lead generating? I mean, you mentioned that the market is tough. We're all in
Hmm.
it right now, but there's
Yeah.
still business out there. I mean, you're still closing deals. So what do you do to lead gen, and what do you do to ensure that you're staying consistent?
Hmm. Yeah, so we actually transitioned. We have a CRM that we use. So we had Boomtown and they've had that for a long time. And we've made a transition recently. So we have like a CRM with, a huge database really, because they've had it for years. So there's thousands of names in there. And so that's a really big part of what I do. And that's really a lot of how I got started. This year I was able to close, a really, for me, the biggest transaction I've had. And that was off one of those, CRM leads that had been there for years. And it was just about trying to re-engage people and just, keep cultivating those relationships. And I think that that's one of the things that really helps me. It's like if I consistently make follow-up calls through that CRM, like I know that something is going to come of it. And even a lot of those platforms like Boomtown will tell you like those leads are slow burn. That's what they say. Don't expect them to like turn overnight. Those are not your 90-day leads. Those are like things that are going to take some time. And, really, I think with the exception of one, that's true for all of those. So it's really about just having that pipeline and making sure that like I'm looking for that recent activity and just making sure that I'm doing some type of touch based on
Right.
that. So that's one of the things that we do. We do work with Redfin, so we are Redfin partner agents. And so that's been something that we actually recently kind of upgraded. So before it was kind of tough because the team leader was getting the leads and so we would be like kind of co's on those, if we were really working on that transaction. But at this point we've been able to make it a team platform instead of just one agent. So I think that's really exciting for us.
Right.
And so we want to really continue to cultivate that relationship with Redfin. And I mean, that's a supplement, but I mean, it helps, especially right now. That's where people are going automatically, between Redfin and Zillow, unfortunately, that's where they're going. And so it's our job to still really cultivate those relationships and make sure they have a great transaction because I know buyers today are going to be sellers tomorrow. And I really want to make sure that my buyers, no matter where they came from, are extremely happy and I keep in touch with them. And that's another thing that we're really good at here is just making sure that we continue to stay in touch with past clients. So I don't have a ton of past clients at this point, but the team does. And
Right.
so we really want to make sure that we're always doing those touches and that I start to implement that with the clients that I do have so that, in the next few years, I start to see that come back around. And so I think that's the other thing is just, I mean, really to me, it's like pipeline. We have a few different pipelines set up. We have, farms that are related to those pipelines and just really just try to be, somewhat systematic about it. I'm very like operational when I come to like that type of thinking, but it really helps me to just keep track of everything. You talk to so many people all the time, and it's so important to really just remember little things. And so those records that I have, I feel like are really, really important in order for me to keep moving forward. And, again, like there's literally like, more than 5,000 people in one CRM. And it's like, I can't, like, it's impossible. So just really good notes and just being consistent with it. You'll see that information over and over again and it sticks.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you. So aside from the CR, do you do any organic farming or lead gen at all?
I do. So one of the things that we really work on, especially if we get a listing, um, is building that relationship. So, I do a lot with condos and complexes, but that's really an opportunity to be in some of those places that other people can't get into.
Right.
Right. So a lot of those places are gated. You don't have to have access to those things. So that's really important. So I always start with building a farm with just that complex. And I try to learn as much as I can about each of those people that live there. Like this last complex, I only had 18 units at it. So it was pretty easy to try to figure out like who's who and what's going on. And then we do open houses just for the neighbors. And so we also make like cute little invites for that. And we do go door knocking a couple days beforehand.
Right.
Sometimes depending on the complex, we may not get a lot of faces that open the door, but we make sure we leave those invites. And I always make sure that I note which ones we didn't get answers at, and I make calls after the fact. So if we go on a Thursday night, let's just say if we're having our open house on Saturday, and then Friday, I will make calls to try to get some additional people to show up. So I think that that's really important. I make sure that I have good food. For the most recent listing we had Portos, and I put that out there. That's a draw.
Yes.
So I did that. And then, I made those calls and I called the absentee owners as well. A lot of those absentee owners really don't live too far away from the property. And so I was able to get some of the absentee owners to come down to the open house too. So that I think is really important. If they're absentee, they may have multiple things that they own. And so I
Correct.
think that that's really, really important to drive that relationship. So after that point, we do circle prospecting. So like I partnered with Grant and Rana and got some information from them for that area so that I could continue to make calls. We sent out some email blasts that way as well. So I have like constant contact. So send that out and make sure that, we get it in front of as many places as possible. I mean, there's only so many doors I can door knock, but that way I can kind of really just blast out to that big area, and just get our name out there. And then we want to always make sure that once we're, in contract, we close, we follow up with kind of the same idea. So trying to do at least 3 touches, for as many people in that area as possible. Our goal really is to get at least 2 additional transactions off of something. So,
Wow, that's amazing. That's a great goal. We always talk about, every time you have a listing, those listings have babies. And if you don't capture that, you're going to lose them.
yep.
So, yeah, no, I love that. No, that's amazing. Let's shift over. So, what does a day look like? So, for example, today you started off with us, so thank you very much. And then what else is going on today? So, it is a Friday. Usually, a lot of our agents are pedal to the metal, right? You're
Mhm.
preparing for the open houses, things like that. What does a day in Rachel Rodriguez life look like?
Yeah. So like this weekend, like I know for sure, like I don't have any open houses this weekend. Next weekend I think will be different, thankfully. Um, but this weekend I know that I don't. So really like my focus is on following up with some of my buyer clients. They've been looking at properties all week. So it's really important that I make sure that I have any tours set up that I'm going to be going on this weekend. So that's going to be priority one, really. And then the other things that I'm working on is circle calling around a listing that we're getting that's coming soon. So we really want
Yeah.
to make sure that we're getting in front of those people, not just, potential sellers, but people that are renting in that area that may be considering it.
No, that's awesome. So let's kind of start, or let's kind of go back. So we have a lot of new agents that's on the call. Can you explain a little bit further on what does circle prospecting mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I really just partner with Grant and Rana. Like Grant is really great with technology, so he's really good about helping me understand how to use their systems, but they have lots of tools that, give you free information.
Mhm.
So they have a farm app, and so I will kind of like use the property that we're, you know, they have the listing for as like my center. And then you basically just kind of cast around it. So it gives you like a little area. And it really depends on how big you want it to be, on what types of properties you want to include. Do you want to include multifamily? Or are you just looking at condos and single family? So it gives you all of that information on who the owner is. So you can get the property addresses, but some of those people may be absentee. It gives you that information, kind of all in one spot. You can request to get phone numbers and emails through them as well. So that's a system that sometimes we use. But I do use things like True People Search. And that's a really big help for me. I think that information is really similar to a lot of information that we've paid for. So like I've used things like RedX in the past to do it, and I didn't really feel like it was necessarily better.
Mhm.
And so, with budgeting and really looking at what you're spending money on, I mean, True People Search is a really good free option. And so, we'll start with calls and just letting them know that we're going to have this coming on the market, kind of tell them roughly when we think we'll have it open. I think that's usually a thing that neighbors want, is they want to be able to check it out, so they want to know when they can. And that's kind of our first little touch. And if we can get them to come, it's about having food and having that time to interact with them and build that relationship. So that's really what the goal is for me there. It's not just like, hey, we sold this and this is how much it was, okay, bye. Like that
Right.
doesn't really get you anything. It's really about trying to get to know them and explain the process of what you did for the seller. And everything you do has a different story, and that's kind of what they want to hear and understand what you did.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Fred, do you have a question? You unmuted.
I'm sorry. I didn't know I am muted.
No,
Sorry.
yeah, okay. Okay, well, continue. So no, that's great. Thank you. I know because a lot of us, especially when you're brand new, we use a lot of lingo, right? The language of real estate. So
Yeah.
I wanted to at least dive in a little bit further on that. No, that's amazing. Thank you. Okay, so we've kind of gone over now. What is your goal between now and the end of the year? So we're pretty much halfway to, through September, which means the fourth quarter is literally around the corner. What is your game plan for the next few months to make sure that, you're wrapping up your year strong?
Yeah. So I think like for me, still being less than 2 years in, I think for me, I was like, okay, I really want to do at least one transaction a month. And so right now I'm at 8. So I need to do 4 more for the rest of the year. And so it's really just about trying to get those appointments. So I have a spreadsheet and I kind of keep track of like how many calls I need to have till I make a conversation and things like that, right? So it's really about knowing how much it takes for you to convert. And so that's kind of what my game plan is, right? It's like I need to get that volume, right? I need to get in touch with more people. So that's really what my biggest thing is right now. I do have, buyers that I'm working with, and my goal is to convert 2 more of the buyers that I have. So that's half of what I need to get, right? So if I can do that and I can get 2 listings, like we're there. So it sounds like a lot going into the holidays, but I know from experience from last year, I thought it was going to be super, super slow, and I ended up closing a deal at the end. So I know that it can be done. I think that, you know, I feel like this year, I think travel was up a lot, and I think people did a lot more this summer. So maybe they put some things off this summer that now that, it's winding down, maybe that's where we're going towards. So hopefully we'll see more activity, towards this fourth quarter. And I think that's just kind of what I'm sticking to. People that are telling me that they're waiting till next year, like, well, what's a couple months? Like, maybe we can just kind of push them along and get them to do it now versus waiting. So I think that just educating people. There's lots of experts out there talking about how if everybody decides to wait and they wait till rates go down, like it's just going to be as bad as it was before. So I think, now that people have seen some of those experiences, that doesn't sound just like a sales pitch. I think that
Right.
they'll understand it a little bit. So that's kind of like the tactic that I'm using, is just really trying to get them to understand waiting doesn't necessarily benefit you. So it's our job to educate, and that's what we're supposed to do. So um that's the information that I'm putting out. And again, just really staying in touch. It's important that anybody that's really expressed a want to do something, that you help them get it done.
Right, right. No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Ish. I've definitely seen you grown, and even you're not. I know sometimes you sell yourself short, but you're not a new agent. I mean, you're kicking some butts, and I see your work ethics. You are so involved with all your clients, and just the way you operate is, I mean, on every high level that you can imagine. So we're super, super uh glad to be in business with you. We have a few minutes left. What would be your advice to the agents that is starting and or is in the business? What should they be doing today?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I have to remind myself of is just because you're new doesn't mean you're not capable of doing it.
Mhm.
Right. And so a lot of us come with different backgrounds, different experiences. You may be new to this, but it doesn't mean that you're new to doing a lot of the things that you're going to have to do.
Mhm.
And so I think just really be confident. Learn as much as you can, because that's going to help you to feel more confident when you get those, questions. And even if you don't know an answer, it helps you to understand where to go to find the answer. Right. So, and it just sounds like you're going to know a little bit better of how to take care of the situation, even if you can't answer the question on the spot.
Right.
Right. So I think that that's like the biggest thing. Don't be afraid to go after things. I mean, I can just kind of share one little experience. You know Competition was really high when I first started. I started with a client back in April of last year, and I had got my license in March. And he was on the fence between getting a mobile home and a condo. And I mean, obviously I knew what the better investment was for him. And we had to figure out how to beat out offers. but luckily I'm on a team and I knew how to do it. And he just needed a lot of support. And I was worried because I knew I was new, and I don't think that he knew that, but I knew that. But it didn't matter. Ultimately, we got him the spot that he wanted. And while I was in the middle of that, I identified like a really small area that he wanted to be on. And that was another example of a time that I farmed and was successful. There was 52 units in this complex, and I called every single unit. And he ended up buying in there, but I also got a listing. So there are ways to do it, and it's about being consistent and it's about being persistent. And if you can do those two things, like someone will recognize that in you and they'll want to work with you. So I think just try not to sell yourself short, right? And just be as confident as possible. And just really make sure that you're just trying to do what you can for your client, right?
Absolutely.
So never feel like you're bugging people when it's for the benefit of your client.
I love that. Thank you so much. No, this is awesome. Thank you. Well, Rachel, we really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking your time and joining us this morning. You are an amazing, amazing individual. And, we cannot wait to see what else you have under your sleeve, because I know you're going to kick some butt this year. You guys, if there are any questions for Rachel before we part ways this morning. Okay, I think we're good. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate you. You guys have a great, great weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks,
All right.
Rachel. Great
Bye, guys.
story. Wish
Thank
you
you.
the best. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Pam. Take care.